Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Black Spinner Circle Music Vidcast. I'm Al Horta, my cohort, Andy Rodriguez. What's up, brother?
Hey, Al. How's it going?
Good, man. We got a great guest on today, man. My buddy Jaron Gulino. How are you, brother?
Oh yeah, what's up, guys? Everything's going good. Thanks for having me.
Jaron is bassist. Not do I say not the now defunct Lynch Mob or?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of what it is. So sure.
Yeah. So he's bassist player for Lynch Mob, Heaven's Edge, Tantric. He's a journeyman. Let's just put it that way. He's lends his talents to many bands. And Jaron, man, thank you so much again for coming on. I appreciate it, brother.
Of course, my honor.
So Andy and I was talking to Andy, and I know I'll start with how I met you. So I met you when you were a bass player in Tantric. You actually played in New Jersey in Rahway, which is my hometown. You guys were playing in a theater that I could literally like walk to from my house, and it was actually it was Puddle of Mud. It was Mudfest, called Mudfest. So it was Puddle of Mud. You Tantric, I think it was Saliva.
Saving Abel and Trapped.
Trapped. It was just those four, right?
Yeah, I think Saving Abel was on it, but I think that was one of the nights where something was wrong with their bus or something, and they missed the show or whatever it was.
Okay. Yeah. So you were gracious. I was out in the lobby. I saw you out there, so I just went up to you and I was like, "Hey, dude, you played a great show. It was awesome." And you were very gracious. You were talking to me for a while. And you actually had a Lynch Mob shirt on, but you weren't playing with them yet. You didn't even. I remember that night you were saying you were going to go see them somewhere. I don't know. I guess they might have been playing in New Jersey somewhere, maybe Starland Ballroom or something.
Yeah, that night Dokken was actually playing.
Oh, Dokken.
And so because Tantric was on so early on the Mudfest package, we were able to jet out of there after we got done and go down to Starland and catch Dokken. So
that's right, Dokken. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, it was Dokken. But you did have a Lynch Mob shirt on because I got a picture with you.
Always, man. I always have one on forever.
Yeah. And I bought this last time that I just saw you playing with George down here in Sarasota, Florida. I bought a Lynch Mob shirt and I was scrambling. I can't find it now. It's probably buried somewhere in the laundry or something. But anyway, I bought a Lynch Mob shirt and XYZ.
Oh yeah.
I thought those guys were great too. The singer for XYZ.
Harry, yeah.
Yes. He's a great dude too. I met him when George played at the OCC Roadhouse. It was actually the first show I saw down here when I moved down here to Florida. George was playing the OCC Roadhouse. I believe that's in St. Pete. And that was the first concert I saw down here when I moved down here. So me and my buddy Edwin, we went there. We were both huge Dokken fans, and we went there. And George you weren't there that night, but he ripped it up, man. I was like, man, that's all. I mean, he played all Dokken, one Lynch Mob song. And it seemed to be a pattern. I guess like he was playing these one-off shows where he'd do like all Dokken and stuff, and have like guests, I guess, sing with him and stuff. So was that like a regular kind of pattern in different areas with you guys?
So those shows are part of this thing called Rise of the Decades, which is essentially a package that features a new up and coming band called AON, All or Nothing.
Yeah, All or Nothing.
Band is usually XYZ. And then they all kind of come out as a group to back George to do an all special, all Dokken set.
Yeah.
I think after the first batch of those shows, they realized people really like that. So it's something that's kind of still going on, but at the same time, only happens sporadically. And so when I saw you last, at Big Top Live, that was one of those special shows.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. And that's pretty much when you guys had one more show to do. I think Lynch Mob had one more show, and then you guys kind of put the lid on it, and that's really it. Is it really the end, or it's just George is just kind of moving on to just different projects? And I guess right?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's the end of Lynch Mob for sure. The band dynamic of keeping the same group of guys together and going out there and tackling it as a group, because as George is getting older, he wants to spend more time at home and live his life a little bit, which is completely understandable. So that kind of takes the the band dynamic out of it, because if you're not out there playing all the time, it's hard to support a band financially and make sure everybody's got money to pay their bills. So it's kind of George's way of saying, hey, I'm not going to stop playing, but it's not really going to be feasible for me to keep a band together anymore. So moving forward, he's going to still do stuff. It's just it might not be the same guys. It might be a revolving door. But as far as the band, again, dynamic and the Lynch Mob, as it would be, that's kind of where it's come to a close, and kind of bittersweet. But the fact that we'll still get a little bit of George Lynch out there is the bright side to that. And I'm excited to see what that brings, and what's in the cards for something different for him. Hearing some different material that maybe isn't just Dokken and Lynch Mob. Going outside of those walls and exploring the rest of his extensive catalog.
Oh, and geez, the catalog is extensive, man. I mean, I do love the KXM records he does with Doug Pinnick of King's X, and the End Machine. He's got that, and I mean, he's just so many. He dips his toe in so many waters, man. It's amazing how much material he does, man. He gets to do. So yeah, I'm sure like he'll kind of like ease it back a little bit, but I mean it's in his blood, man, to get right and just play. That's how it is. The guy's a legend. And when I saw you at Big Top, it was great to see you, and you played great with him, and it was awesome. It was a great lineup, man. The other guitar player, that young kid, was pretty incredible too, because I caught the set of his band, and they were doing like some covers and stuff like that, and he was just ripping it up, man. That guy's amazing. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but
Midnight Vice.
Okay.
That was the band. His name is Sam Bean. He's killer. He's a young guy, early 20s. He's got the fire.
Yeah, oh yeah, man. He's definitely somebody to watch, because he was awesome, man. And so when I saw you, you were gracious enough to come and say hello and everything. And I was almost gonna ask you, I was like, because I actually met George one time. I met him at a Lynch Mob show at Starland Ballroom, and I think he was a split bill between them and Skid Row. So this is like probably 2012, somewhere around there. God, it's over 10 years ago already. And I remember I walked around the back of Starland, and I've been to Starland. Starland Ballroom was like kind of a home away from home for me, because I saw plenty of shows there. And so I kind of walked around the back where the buses are, and I saw George talking to like three other guys, just bullshitting and stuff. And so I kind of walked up, and I just kind of just stood there. I didn't like butt in or anything. I just was kind of like the fly on the wall, just kind of listening, because one guy had a guitar with him. They were talking gear. I'm a guitar player myself, so I kind of soaked that in. And and he was gracious enough. I had my George Lynch Sacred Groove CD, which was his first solo album.
Nice, yeah.
And he graciously signed that. And I remember one of the other guys asked him for a picture, and he was just kind of like, I kind of not really into that right now. I'm not, which is understandable. I don't never judge anybody. I mean, some people just sometimes they get off a concert, they're kind of winding down. They don't want to, but he was not an asshole or a dick about it. He was just very, and I didn't. So when I saw the guy ask him, I kind of, because I did want to get a picture with him, but I was just like, it was cool just to talk to him and stuff. And so for me, meeting him was enough, you know what I mean? But when I saw you, I was almost gonna be like, Jaron, man, can I go get a picture with him? But I didn't want to be that guy. I never want to be that guy. It was just cool. And you guys are like breaking down, and I don't want to bother anybody, but it was cool that you came over and gave some of your time for me, and I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, man. I try to always make time for everybody, especially people that I know and have been friendly with before. And part of the whole thing about playing music and getting out there is meeting new people and hanging out with friends that you normally wouldn't see, due to just distance or living somewhere else in the country or overseas or whatever. So that's always a highlight for me.
That's awesome, man. Andy, you want to jump in? I'm talking too much here.
No, it's fine. I was just going to ask Jaron. Every time we have a special guest on here, especially musicians, I've got certain questions that I like to ask y'all, because most musicians, like yourself, you've been loving music for a very long time, probably for as long as you can remember. So, what was your first concert that you went to?
My first concert, Iron Maiden, Halford, Queensryche at PNC Bank Arts Center in Homedale. That was on the Brave New World tour when Bruce Dickinson first came back.
Oh,
I was
wow.
11 years old or something, man. It was
Right.
God, I'm feeling old.
man, it was crazy, and it definitely made the impact and set me on my trajectory for not only being a huge fan but being involved somehow.
Yeah, that kind of aged me too, because I remember that tour, and I was in my early 20s when I saw that tour.
Yeah, right on.
Because I remember Halford, because it was a big deal that he was out, without Priest, and the news about his personal life had just came out, and so it was a big deal, and it was a very big show too. It was very
Oh yeah.
that
He
Brave
was
New
back.
World was a
He was
good.
back into metal again. Actually, at that time,
Yeah,
he was dabbling. Remember in the '90s, he was doing that
yeah,
too, and kind of
Yeah,
dabbling in
yeah.
industrial but stuff. But that's cool. But I didn't catch that tour, but that's a cool lineup, man. That's a great first concert.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
man, it was an amazing show, and getting a little bit of those powerhouse singers. I mean, Halford, Jeff Tate, and Bruce Dickinson. I mean, that was just ridiculous.
That's like a trifecta, man.
Yeah, that's really getting some of the greatest frontmen of all time all in one night.
Yeah.
That can grab can hold 20 or 25,000 people all at once in the palm of their hands, just by their presence and their powerful vocals. And right now, I'm in the middle of listening to KK Downing's book on audio right now. So it's interesting you mentioned Halford, because I'm in the middle of that book right now. What was the first piece of music you remember buying with your own money?
With my own money,
Yeah,
I remember the first CD I got as a little kid, and I'm talking 6, 7, maybe as late as 8. Was like Green Day, Dookie, like when that came out. Like I just remember having that and thinking it was like the coolest thing to have a CD. But in terms of like being a music fan and really buying something that I was into, I remember being on a vacation with my dad when I was young and buying a Yardbirds CD, and my dad was super into the old stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, I want to get that. So I bought it, and I was listening to it a lot, and I somehow got into Maiden on the same trip. And so I bought one of the greatest hits that was out at the time, and it had like a live version of Fear the Dark on it. And I just remember thinking, holy crap. And my dad was like, hey, you want to trade me that Yardbird CD and I'll get the Maiden thing? And I'm like,
no way. Yeah.
So that was probably the first one I remember buying with my own money and just being like, totally blown away.
Well, that Green Day Dookie is still one of my favorite albums of all time, still my top 20.
Yeah, I don't like now that I'm thinking back on it, I'm like, I don't even remember how I would have bought that or got that. I was like literally 6, 7 years old, but I remember having it and just being, kind of feeling cool because it was a little raunchy, but at the same time it was pop, but still rock. At that time in the era of music, it was still, pop rock was still a big thing. So
right, yeah.
I think Green Day really appeal to like young kids, anyway, because they look like young kids.
Culture.
They looked like young kids themselves actually when they first, burst on the scene and stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing that. I saw that tour, the Dookie tour in the Nassau Coliseum, and I mean that was '94, right?
Yeah,
probably 94, 95. And God, I was 23 at the time. And I was probably the oldest guy there on the floor. I felt like it, man.
Yes, I was about to say, when I saw them on the American Idiot tour, I could have sworn I felt like a chaperone there. I really did.
This is amazing, man. I mean, I was only in my early 20s, and all these kids that were like 14, 15, like slam dancing on the floor and stuff. And I'm like throwing them around and having fun. And it was great, man. It was pretty cool.
They're like, excuse me, sir, can you buy us beer?
Pretty much, man.
Right.
That's cool, man. So who were some of your influences, man? What was that? What was that spark that like I want to pick up a bass and I
don't know that there was a musical act that really sparked my desire to play. I think it was more seeing my friends play when I was an early teen and being into metal and Slayer and King Diamond and like all these bands that were regarded as, beasts at their instruments. And then like going down the street to hang out with some friends and like hearing them play Welcome Home by King Diamond or Angel of Death. I'm like, these kids are like 14 or 15 years old. Like, it just like it was like an eye opener. Like, wait, people can play this, that are like my age, like it's kind of crazy. So it was kind of where I shifted from, going skateboarding every day with my friends to splitting my time between playing the bass and jamming at friends' houses and going out during the daytime and skateboarding. So, yeah, I mean, it was more of that desire to like be a part of it and to participate in a further state than just going to concerts or buying CDs. And I was already like a diehard fan and collector and worshiper of all things rock and metal. So I guess to then be a part of it by participating and performing was just the next logical step.
Wow, interesting. So are you still a collector of music?
I am. It's funny because as I get older, record shops are a less and less of a thing. When I grew up, vintage vinyl in New Jersey was the place to go, and there was no better place. And I would go there every other weekend and get tons and tons of crap. And now when I'm out on the road or whatever, and I see mom and pop record stores, I get excited because those are the places that are going to have the more obscure things, the deeper cuts. But as time has gone on, I find even when I go into these places and find these rare things, most of it's stuff I already have as a collector. And so I find myself getting discouraged because I'm like, I want to keep collecting. I want to keep getting the remasters or the reprints or the European import of this Sabbath thing that just came out after like the 17th reissue, I want to still collect all this stuff, but I find I have so much already. And, I think the next thing for me would be like go to Japan or something to get, all the alternate versions of these albums that I burned in my brain my whole life. But yes, I still collect, not as much as I once did, but I'm still very much into it and still very much a fan.
Yeah, I'm a collector myself, and I just, it's like every week, I live in Houston. Well, I live in Houston, so I really do have a pick of record stores to go to. So I do have my favorites, and I know exactly where to go and what the prices are going to be and what I'm going to find. So yeah, I'm still very much into it. It's my favorite thing to do. So you got any more questions for Mr. Jaron, or you want to hit the top 10?
Well, no. Well, I want to ask him about some of the bands. I know you're still active in Heaven's Edge, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you were on their last album that they put out, right?
Right. Yeah.
Get it right. How'd you get into the band? Because they've been around since probably the 80s, right? Late 80s?
Yeah. The second half of the 80s is when they kind of started up, and then, obviously gained traction at the tail end there before grunge took over. I was asked to play with the band in late 2019 after the passing of Gigi Godati, original bass player. And I knew wanted to get back out there and play. And I think at that time they had the Monsters of Rock cruise, on the schedule. And we're like, we still like to do this if we can. But I think at that time, they were kind of unsure whether they wanted to move forward, or could. They've been all original for the most part over the years. So I know that losing, a key guy was crucial to them. And that doubt of, do we still want to do this? I totally understand that. And so I actually got the message from Mark Evans when I was over in Europe with Tantric, and the tour with Tantric. I mean, it was fine. It was my first time in Europe and doing UK and all that, and I was excited, but it was a very grueling tour. It was the band's first time there, so not a lot of following. We're kind of slumming it through some of the clubs, and exciting, but at the same time, not the greatest. And so to get that kind of message and that shift of focus while I was over there to start thinking about Heaven's Edge, that was super cool. And I think just came at the right time. And being a Philly area guy, of course I know who Heaven's Edge is. And of course I, would want to participate in that. I was actually blown away and honored that the guys even thought of me. It's like, is this real? Heaven's Edge is looking to move forward somebody. So, went down there as soon as I got back from Europe and jammed with the guys, and kind of just fell into place. And I think they were kind of looking for a younger guy, to help bring some new energy and keep the guys going and push them a little harder than, just going through the motions. And Yeah, so it's been 5 years of doing Heaven's Edge now, and we did Get It Right a couple years ago, and it came out last year or the year before, and we're actually just about like next week going to start the follow up, and we've picked I think 10 out of 30 songs for the selection pieces for the record, so we've at least focused in on what we're going to do, and yeah, man, I'm excited to kind of get back with the guys and get back to work. We've been kind of out of it since first half of last year. We've been pretty quiet, so it's time to shift gears a little bit.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Now, I admittedly, like, I didn't really like. I remember hearing the name Heaven's Edge, but I never really heard anything about him. So I dove into actually the Get It Right album, like this past couple of days, and it's great melodic hard rock, man. I mean, it's pretty awesome actually. It's a good album, man.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed it. I actually want to go out and buy a physical copy of it now. Like I want to order it or whatever. And because I just streamed it online, I didn't have it. So, but I want to kind of go back and kind of hear like their older stuff. I don't really know anything about them. So, I mean, I guess they were one of those kind of regional bands that never made it really huge or anything like that. But so they were out of PA as well.
Yeah, Philly area, South Jersey. That Cinderella, Brittany Fox.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Stuff, and yeah, man, the first album is killer. It's just edgy attitude, hard rock, East Coast style. That late '80s. I would say hair metal, but take the hair out of it. It's street metal, man. It's heavy and tons of ripping on guitar and a lot of cooks. And I've burned that friggin' album. I've burned through it a million times, man. So all these years later, to be able to play those songs and jam with those guys was, a big reward for me, and then super exciting at the time and still is. We don't play that much, so when we get to, it's still special.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'll have to pick up that first album, man. I'll have to try it out.
Highly recommend.
Cool. And Tantric, how did you? I met Hugo at that show as well. Now I kind of have a bit of a something in common with him. I mean, he's Portuguese, I'm Portuguese. So I just wanted to kind of catch him off guard. So when I walked up to him, I just started talking to him right away in Portuguese, and I kind of caught him off guard. He's like, oh, like kind of a fellow. All of a sudden, it's kind of like, hey, you're a fellow, pork chop. We call each other pork chops and stuff. That's a kind of a friendly term, call each other. And we were talking to each other. It was cool, man. I mean, he was really cool, nice and stuff. So, but I know he's like the leader of the band. It's not the original band anymore. He kind of took over. But I remember Breakdown when I came out in the early 2000s. That was a big song on the radio, and I remember that was from the ashes of Days of the New, that band. And then just basically it was Days of the New with a new vocalist, and they kind of went electric then, because Days of the New was more acoustic based. But how did you end up meeting him and getting into Tantric?
Interesting story, just kind of through playing in other bands and meeting guys. And I happened to play in another band earlier on called Delacoma, which is an Australian rock band that was touring here in the States. And I got hired to fill in on bass with that band. And the drummer at that particular time was a guy named Troy Patrick Farrell, who is a big time player out in the scene and does a lot of the 80s bands and the rock bands. And he was about to transition over into doing a tour with Tantric following that Delacoma run. And it turned out that I guess the whole band had quit or had been fired or whatever. And so he was like, hey, I'm joining this band, but I don't think there's a guitar player or a bass player, would you be interested? And
wow.
I said yes, of course, but I had never really heard of him. I heard the name and seen the logo, maybe on flyers and stuff, but I didn't even really know Breakdown. I mean, it kind of sounded familiar, but at the time when all that came out, I was a young kid listening to Yngwie Malmsteen,
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't really know.
Yeah.
And so, man, I just kind of I knew it was going to be a step up and in the right direction of where I wanted to go with my career in terms of getting my foot in the door on something much bigger than the regional scene. So, got in there and then hit it off with Hugo and stayed for 6 years and played in many different lineups of the band and cut my teeth on all things Tantric, which is, some great places like where you saw me in Rahway and, some not so great places as well. And, it's just like a like a learning ground, for a national act or somebody getting their start in touring.
It's amazing, like how, like over here in America, though, like touring with them, I'm sure you guys played some, you had a following and people come out, but like you said, when you went over to Europe, it's completely different ball game.
Dude, it was crazy, man.
People probably never even heard of them or knew of them.
I would say 50% of the shows. I think we did like 14 shows in 15 days. Like half of them were decent, and probably a quarter of them were fun and awesome. But like some of those places, I mean, we played to nobody in some of the UK places, and it was more about getting to visit Amsterdam and all these places you dream of going, and Germany and wherever, France. But it took us like maybe 6-7 days before we realized we got to do things our own way. We're traveling in a van with the opening band, and they had never really been on tour before, and Tantric's a tour machine, so we're very efficient with how we like to do stuff. And so to hand over the keys to let somebody else kind of take us around was very difficult. Just because we like to do stuff, man. We like to go out and see things, go out to eat, get somewhere in the daytime to see the sights. And on this tour, it was like we were getting to places when it was dark and missing all the tourist stuff. And I'm in France and I don't see anything because we took all day to drive and we took our sweet time. So it was like halfway through that tour, we were like, I think me, Hugo, and Sebastian were like, we're just going to spend our own money and fly everywhere and get there early and go see the sights and go see the museums and all that stuff. So it was still fun, but yes, like being in America and playing almost 200 shows a year, and the majority of them being decent, and some of them being excellent is a normal thing. Where you go to Europe for the first time and it's all exciting and new, and you get there and there's just like nobody there. And luckily I played my whole life and I played to nobody so many times. It kind of you just do it. It didn't really faze me. I wasn't like bummed out about it.
Hey, listen, you're getting to see the world still, man. It
was new and exciting.
Yeah, so I mean that's
awesome.
I think that's pretty awesome still to be able to even. I mean, I always had a dream of playing in a band and touring. I never made it, but yeah, I still love playing guitar. I still love collecting music, listening to music, and during COVID when there was nothing to do, and I kind of started like a channel just doing videos. I'm like, let me just bullshit and talk about music, and and then like I met Andy and we started a show together. He actually had his channel. He asked me to be his co-host, so we sort of taken off now, and it's just like, for me, it's like being young and having your friends over, just talking about music and listening to music. It's just like in a virtual world now. It's kind of, you do it over the computer,
Yeah. At least there's still a way to do it, man, because I can't tell you, how many people I used to just sit around and sit in a room and jam, listen to music or put on music videos. And now it's like people I know, no one wants to listen to music because that's all they do all day long is play. And is that sound check? I want it to be quiet, or, so bizarre. It's a strange thing, but So Tantric, you played on 2 releases by them, right? Mercury Retrograde and The Sum of All Things, correct? That is correct.
Okay, cool. How was it making albums and being in the studio making? Was Hugo like the main writer, and you just kind of come in and just do your bass parts, or did you kind of contribute to any songwriting or? Like
yes to both. Like, Hugo's the guy. He's got a million songs, and he is kind of that sound. He I don't care how many people try to write a song that sounds like Tantric. I mean, the second he touches anything, it becomes Tantric. And the first one, Mercury Retrograde, we kind of came in when it was halfway done already from the previous lineup of the band, and Hugo kind of owed the record to the label, and we had to kind of go in and finish it up. But I ended up playing on, I think it was 7 of the 9 songs or 8 of the 10 songs. And so that was cool. And getting to do it at a real studio at Pearl Sound in Michigan was really, the icing on the cake, because, you always dream of recording on an album. And I had done a lot of albums at that point with my bands, but going to a real, fancy studio and seeing
cool
at that level was the reward, or, the icing on the cake for me. So Yeah, it was cool, doing it that way. And then I thought, going into COVID, we owed another record, which became the Sum of All Things. And I thought, cool, we're gonna go do this from scratch. I had found out that typical Hugo fashion, he signed a record deal and didn't tell anybody. So it was like, hey, we got 60 days left. We got to finish this record. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't even know really how it worked back then. So, our 90 days was all of a sudden 60 days. And I was like, oh shit, we better demo some songs and do all this. So Sebastian Labar and myself came up with a bunch of tunes and brought them all into the studio. And then of course we get there and Hugo's like, oh no, I already got all the songs. Here's a hard drive with a bunch of demos on it. It's stuff he had done over the years, and rightfully so, all good stuff, and didn't hurt my feelings or whatever. But yes, we took those songs that he had already written and kind of brought them together as ourselves and put our own little spin on it. So contributed, in more ways than one. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing,
Yeah. You were in a band called Midnight Hellion? Is that
very briefly?
Okay. What was that like? And I don't know. I remember hearing that name, but I don't know much about them either. Where are they from?
The Trenton area.
Okay.
And my buddy Drew Rizzo and I have been, Overkill diehard fans forever, and part of the Jersey, staples in terms of people at shows and stuff like that. And he had actually asked me to fill in with a band he had called Capitalist Death Machine that had been kind of playing the Trenton area and Jersey. And then for whatever reason, that band kind of fell apart, one guy at a time. And then he's like, we got to do a new band. And we came up with Midnight Hellion. And I was involved very briefly, probably a few rehearsals, a few months maybe. And I just was doing my own thing and doing a few other bands at the same time. So I phased it out, but they continued and still continue to play to this day.
Okay. And you were mentioning a band called Delacoma. It's they were from where?
Australia.
So they were hard rock as well?
Yeah. I would say kind of like 80s mixed with 90s, like Stone Temple Pilots meets Whitesnake in a way.
I like that.
Yeah, man. Honestly, to date, it's probably one of my most proud albums that I played on. This last one that came out called Blood, I think it came out in 21, 22, something like that. I recorded it out at Scenic Arts Studio with Anthony Esposito, original bass player. And we sat out there at his place and really took our time with the tracks. And I think tonally and, playing wise, it's one of my proudest moments out there. But it's a great album and it's got a really unique sound. And, the band's obviously in Australia. So when they come to the States, I try to be as much a part of it as I can. But the leader, Del, he's actually got, a solid lineup now and does stuff, with those guys. So I'm only involved as much as he wants me to be. And, I was originally there helping out as a friend. So I kind of keep it there and stay there, for the time being.
That's awesome, man. Cool. And then you were in another band called On Top. Is there another band?
So
okay.
It's kind of like, I don't want to say my baby, but, when I kind of phased out of doing metal as a teenager, I was like, I want to do like a kind of like a Dokken or a Rat or, but mixed with still harder, thrash and stuff. So On Top was kind of my version of that traditional heavy metal. And I've done 4 different records with that project over the years. And, as much as I always loved doing it, it was more of a, something for myself, and I sang and played bass on it, for lack of finding an actual good singer. And so I kind of always felt like that band had a lot of potential if I could have found, the right front man. And we did it as a power trio. And
you're singing on it, right?
I am, yeah. So
okay.
Not the world's greatest singer. And, it's cool for what it is. It's got its own style. But, I always just felt like I was just shy of the potential, without that other guy. So, once Tantric and all those other things came into play, I kind of phased that out. I'm not saying it's dead, but I haven't done anything with it since 2018. So, kind of just dormant at the moment.
Okay.
So when it comes to Delacoma, they only made 2 albums, correct? The South of Everything and Blood. And
and there's maybe an EP or 2 in there somewhere as well. Okay. But yeah, those are the 2 main records. Blood is one I played on. What was that?
And you're on both of those?
Just Blood.
Just Blood, okay.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty neat mix. I mean, Whitesnake and Stone Temple Pilots.
I mean, you guys be the judge.
Great.
Take a listen and let me know what
Yeah.
you think. But that's how I would describe it because
Right.
I felt like with some tracks I felt like I was playing like a DeLeo Brothers bass part, and then the other tracks I'm feeling like, oh man, this is very John Sykes guitar going on, and
I love John
yeah,
Sykes.
man, it kind of hits all the sweet spots of the badass musicianship of the 80s and the 90s.
Right. I mean, the way that you're talking about, it's a perfect bridge.
Yeah,
between the metal 80s and going into grunge or whatever rock music of the 90s. So yeah, that sounds very interesting.
we got,
Everyone that's watching, that's Delacoma, Delacoma.
yep.
So check them out.
Yeah, we got a bunch of different stuff on that record. Tracy Gunn's guests on a track, and
Cool.
yeah, man. So that was cool to be able to team up with him, and yeah, I think for the listeners out there that aren't familiar with it, I highly recommend it, and it's definitely got a few surprises on there.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna have to check that out because I like stuff like that. So thanks a lot.
Okay, so you were just mentioned John Sykes, man. I got to see him one time when he did the reformed Thin Lizzy version with him on vocals. I saw that in a place in Long Island called was it Farmingdale, New York, and it was called the Downtown. So
okay.
And Michael Lee that played with Page and Plant was actually the drummer in that version. That's cool. He's gone since passed away as well. And losing John Sykes was kind of a pretty big blow, man. Because I love that Blue Murder, the Blue Murder.
Man, absolutely.
I mean, shit, man. All that he touched was pretty much turned to gold because he was such a phenomenal player, and I'm so lucky. Like I got to see him at least one time live, and he was incredible doing the Thin Lizzy stuff. I thought that was the best version post obviously Phil Lynott was the man, but I was too young to really see Thin Lizzy. So when they reformed, and my buddy, it was actually a buddy of mine's, his friend's band was opening for Thin Lizzy, so that was more kind of the catalyst of why we were going. But for me, I was like, shit, they're opening for Thin Lizzy. I get to see Thin Lizzy. Fuck yeah, man, I'm going, dude.
I saw that tour too, man. Blew me away.
Yeah, so I mean, and he had a good, perfect voice to sing that stuff too.
Yeah,
it kind of reminded me a bit of Phil too.
Sure.
Phil is a big influence on him anyway, so that was pretty much his mentor. But yeah, losing John Sykes was kind of, I wish he would have did more, man. But he was out of the public eye for so long. I guess he was just jaded with the music business.
Shame.
Yeah, it's a shame, man. Getting back to Lynch Mob again. So you were on Lynch Mob's last album, Babylon. How was the recording process with that? Working with George and stuff.
It was pretty stress free. Honestly, I had a lot of pressure on myself because George was always like my idol growing up. It was like modeled my everything I did off of his work ethic, and so when it came time to doing that record and getting the chance to play on it, I was like, all right, I can't mess around. I gotta just like knock this one out. And we did them all remote. George tracked everything at his house, guitars and maybe like a drum machine or click track or something, and then sent it to Jimmy. Jimmy did his parts, and then they sent it to me. And it actually came at a crazy time where I already had a studio session lined up like a week and a half later for this other thing I was doing called the Life Project. And George was like, hey, can you get this done by such and such a date? And, based on the way my schedule was set up, it was like I had a 10-day window. And he was like, can you do these songs? So he sent me 10 songs to do in 10 days that I had never heard. So it was like, one, learning the songs and getting comfortable with the arrangements, and then two, writing the bass part to it, and then three, performing it and recording it and making sure that it all sounded good. I was up every day, early and going to bed late and just cramming it in and getting it done, as the best I could without feeling like I shortchanged myself.
Right.
But it was hard, man, because on one hand, it was easy. I've been a fan of his music for so long, and I know what songs in my brain sound right and the bass parts that sound cool on certain, tracks and certain bands. So I'm like, cool, I kind of know the style already of what it should be. But how can I make it my own, And so that was kind of the the one part of it where I wish I had more time. I just felt like I did the best with the amount of time I had and just got it done, and the rest is history. And there was a lot of other, factors in that record that made it difficult to kind of put out. We had some problems with the producer and some different, things going on that kind of delayed and became hiccups. But as far as like the bass part of it, I was just happy to get it done. But also in the back of my mind was like praying, like, I hope there's going to be another one, because I really want to get redemption where I walk away feeling good. Like, yes, I feel good about Babylon. It's out there. It's all good. But it's not my favorite album that I've ever played on, based on some of the factors involved with it. So I just hoped one day, I'll get another chance with George, whether it be Lynch Mob or a different project or whatever, to kind of, really take my time and make it something that I felt like I played my ass off on, or, I gave it everything I got. And so, luckily, this next one that's coming, we were able to do that. And so, I feel much better about it all now.
So what's in the future? Like, are you recording with George at all, doing some things, or?
Yeah, so we have a one final record coming out. It was pretty much done before this last leg of the tour. We finished it in like November, December, and the only thing missing were the vocals. And the way that the schedule just panned out, we weren't able to knock it out before we left for tour. So Gabriel is actually in doing vocals right now, but the album is done outside of the vocals. And I would describe it as a much more organic sounding rock record. It's very Lynch Mob. It's very old school riffs and George just kind of playing freely, and not so much like a set song structure. It's more just about the riffs and the way things flow into each other. And I had a lot of fun tracking this one, and a lot better of a time just coming up with different stuff and thinking of things that maybe guys wouldn't normally play on a release like this. And so getting to take my time with it, I felt good. But that record will come out hopefully by the fall, and it will be accompanied with a live record and live DVD as well.
Oh, cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a double or a triple release, depending on how you want to look at it.
So that's going to be on Frontiers Records as well?
This one, I believe, is going to be on Rat Pack.
Okay, Rat Pack. Okay. Another pretty good record label too, man.
Yeah, Joe does a great job. And, between doing stuff with Frontiers and George, it's cool to dip my feet in another pool here with Rat Pack. And, being a fan, I bought so many things from Joe and Rat Pack over the years. It's like, cool, now I know the guy, and I'm doing a record for him, and it opens the door for, some other things, hopefully.
I'm going to ask you a gear question. So, like, what kind of basses you use, amplification, kind of take us through that, as a gearhead myself, know.
I typically play Fender P-Bass style bass. The one I've been playing out with George for the last year is, technically it's a P-Bass, but it's a custom-made, build that he did for me. And it's not technically a Mr. Scary guitar that, from his company, but he made it and designed it, and we kind of collaborated on it. So I call it the Mr. Scary, but that kind of taught me something. And that was like, I have all these nice Fender basses, these more expensive ones, some cheaper ones. They all sound great. And then I have this, one that's just kind of made and pieced together that sounds just as good, if not better. And so over the last year, I'm like, moving forward, I don't need any more basses, but if I wanted one, I'm just going to make my own. And so that was what I did when I'm like my last week or second to last week of tour. I said, right as it's winding down, I'm going to order all the pieces I need, and I'm going to have them waiting at home when I get back, and I'm going to just take my time and build my own. And that's what I spent the last week doing. And I just wrapped one up Friday and been sitting home just jamming on it. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, man, I'm happy. So the brand is not so much important to me anymore. I've had endorsements, I've had Fender stuff, I've had stuff you want to buy or get for free, and it's all similar. But now I'm kind of into making my own and making something that not everybody else has. But outside of those basses, I play Orange amps. I've been in love with Orange now about 8 years, and I run the amps through Ampeg cabinets, and I've got some not vintage, but I've got some old school Ampeg cabs that I got off my buddy Anthony from the Charm City Devils way back.
Oh, okay.
That I have toured with for years now. So I find that those cabinets just tend to sound a little better than the usual one. So I've kept the recipe the same for the most part for the last decade.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, that's cool to make your own, because now you got your own distinct sound that you want, and cool. That's awesome,
Dude. You know what? As a musician myself, I always, from the first guitar I ever got, which was this piece of crap, Les Paul copy that I got from a guy in when I was in junior high. I mean, I think he sold to me for like $15 or something like that. And this is in the mid '80s, so like '85 or whatever. And I remember it was deep dark, like blood red. And I remember after a while, after a few years having it, and, I went and I saved up enough money to. I mean, I didn't even have an amp, so I got a guitar cord and I rigged it through my stereo system somehow. I taped like RCA jacks to the guitar jack, and I plugged it into the stereo system, and I got a sound out of it, and learned how to play Iron Man, which is like the first riff I probably ever learned.
Probably me too.
And I met Tony Iommi, man, which was that was a dream come true for me. I mean, that's incredible. That's meeting like the architect right there. So I met him, and when it was him and Ronnie, when it was Heaven and Hell, I knew a buddy of mine was a New Jersey DJ on I don't know if you remember WDHA,
of course,
radio, which was North Jersey. A guy named Scott Evil. I befriended, and I became friends with him. And they were doing a signing at Vintage Vinyl, and they were promoting the Rules of Hell box set, which was basically a package of all the Dio era Sabbath albums. So, he got me in there into the back room with them. I mean, I wasn't like online shuffling through hey, nice to meet you, handshake. I mean, I got to hang out in the back room of Vintage Vinyl for a half hour with those guys, man.
Crazy.
Vinny, all of them. And the fanboy in me wanted to fanboy out, but I kept my cool,
Got it, man.
And in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm fucking meeting Dio, man. I'm meeting Tony. I'm meeting, Geezer. This is this can't be real, But, I thanked him. I was like, listen, you inspire me. You were the first riff I ever learned how to play guitar. And I mean, Tony was very gracious. He's the nicest guy. And Ronnie as well. I mean, Ronnie was a sweetheart. Anybody who's ever met him has always said that. And I can attest to that. That is true. The guy is just ridiculously awesome, to his fans.
Oh yeah.
So, we joked around, me and Ronnie, we talked about baseball because I know he's a baseball fan, and stuff. And him being from the New York guy, I was talking to him about the Mets and all that stuff. I'm a Mets fan, so, and he was like, shame on you. No, but he was funny, man. Tony was cool. We kind of joked around a little bit. I kind of joked with him, whenever he'd do interviews, and when Ozzy was in the band, I even asked Tony, I'm like, is it tough to understand Ozzy once in a while? And he just started bursting out laughing, and he just kind of, nodded his head a bit, but he was very gracious, very, 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 very English, very gentleman, as he should. So anyways, I got to meet those guys. That was a dream come true. Anyway, back to guitar. So that first piece of crowd guitar, I mean, I remember tearing it apart and putting different pickups in it, sanding it down, and doing all this stuff to it, and just kind of experimenting because Eddie Van Halen was my first kind of hero as well, and I know he was kind of like this inventor. He came up with an idea. He wasn't afraid to tear good guitars apart and kind of ruin guitars in a way, but I kind of it was kind of like inspiration for me, kind of just mess around with it and stuff like that. I always hated just buying a stock guitar off the wall, and I just had to modify it for myself. You know what I mean? So
yeah, man, makes it more special.
Yeah. So okay, so on the new Lynch Mob that's going to come out, it's the same lineup as Babylon. You got Jimmy on
drums. Yeah.
How's it working with Jimmy, man? Because I remember him from the Bullet Boy. That first Bullet Boys album, I loved it, man.
Yeah, dude. I'm a big Jimmy fan. From the first Bullet Boys album, onward. I mean, I think I wrecked the Freak Show cassette in my car many a time. But yeah, I've said it before, and I love talking about it. Playing the Jimmy, man, he is his own thing. I played in so many bands where, you could just close your eyes and they're playing to a click track back there and it's all smooth and you kind of just do it. Jimmy, man, you play to him, and his energy is what dictates what's going on kind of on the stage, whether it's the tempo or just the way we're going to play the song that night, heavier, slower, more intense. And that's kind of one of the big things about being in Lynch Mob that was so important to me and is so important about playing music. And that's doing it differently based on emotion and not just, putting on a light show or a LED screen show with music in the background. Like, I go to shows to watch the guys play, I go to watch the performance, so to speak. And so, going to a show and hearing the same set list every night is one thing, but going to a show and seeing the same set list where they play it different every single night was what George was always known for, as far as my opinion and viewing, perspective. But coming into the band, I knew, there's so many songs that I wish George had played over the years from the Lynch Mob or the Dokken catalog. And I just thought we should be switching this up, like as long as all the guys are willing, let's change the set list like almost every night. And let's go to those cities that you played so many times and look what the old set lists were and play stuff that you didn't do last time. And so getting to do that with those guys, and especially Jimmy, was a treat. And the way that Jimmy approaches stuff, we very much made it our own thing. We might play The Hunter by Dokken 100 times, but Jimmy plays it different than Mick Brown played it. And so we find ourselves all playing it a little differently and kind of making it unique and again, more powerful some nights, or, maybe more laid back another night. And that never got old for me. And I can honestly say Jimmy is the one that kind of drives that and holds that power, because I play to him, man. There's no phoning it in with him every night. There might be a different fill in the same spot. It might just be just a little different, or some nights try to make it the same, but it just, it never really is. It's always unique. And I think as a player, that's a great thing. And, some fans might not like that, but as a fan in our genre of music that we do, and we admire all these players and these greats, I think that's probably one of the greatest gifts that some of these guys can give to us. And that's a unique, different performance. I don't want to hear the Dream Warrior solo note for note. I just want to hear how he's feeling. I don't care what songs he plays. I go and watch George play just the guitar. It's not about the set list for me. Yeah. So, to try to hone that in to where it can be about both. I think that's the sweet spot. And again, I think Jimmy was a big part in that for me. And, what a great energy and presence and atmosphere and attitude and fire that guy has. And, Jimmy and I are buds, and, I hope that we continue to do stuff together and obviously always be friends. But, yeah, man, I mean, even getting to do those last couple of shows without him, he left 2 shows before the end of this run. They were fine and we had fun, but they weren't the same. And it's weird how you take out one ingredient and the whole thing is different. And
the dynamic is different, man.
Yeah. So, he made it a lot of fun for me, and, he was and always is going to be a brother for sure. And, I always liked watching him play with George, when I was younger, going to the shows and, getting to jam with him, through my era of the band was a pleasure, man.
I think Jimmy's an underrated drummer, man. Like,
for sure,
he doesn't get name checked, but he should. I think the guy has a terrific groove and sense of, he has a sense of style, man. Like man, those first couple of Bullet Boys albums, man. I mean, I love the drumming in that. I thought he was phenomenal, and I'm sure, like, ever since then, I mean, he's gotten even to be a bigger, better monster. I mean, as time goes on, we all get better at our instruments and stuff, and maturity sets in and stuff. But I mean, he still plays with a fire, it seems. So, and you answered my question about. I was going to ask you about set lists, like how do you guys go about choosing set lists? But you answered that. Like, it's kind of cool that you guys switch it up, keep it fresh, and play.
Thank God for the internet these days, because they got set. Setlist FM or whatever it is. It's like.
Yeah. I like that.
What did we play here, a year ago? And I go back and I look and I'm like, oh, we did, all these songs. So then I'll literally go in and we'll keep a couple of the same ones, the hits that people want to hear. But if we're doing 13, 14 songs, I try to do at least 10 or 11 different ones,
Oh,
if
wow.
we can.
Yeah.
And towards the end there, we were pulling from nearly 50 songs that we all knew together, from his catalog. So that was pretty easy to do, moving forward. It was like, okay, cool. We know we didn't do these 10 last time. So here's another 10. And then, hey, we got even more deep cuts that we could do next time if we wanted to. And half the time we'd write the set list and go off of it anyway. So, it didn't really matter. It was all just kind of how the night was going. And, just try to channel the energy in that direction of making it different.
Um,
Well, I just wanted to add, you had mentioned a little bit ago about sometimes y'all change a little something here and there. And fans of rock music, I mean, we hear it and that gets us excited.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, oh, did you hear that extra this? Or they took this out and they added this. I mean, we go nuts over stuff like that the regular ear or the people that just have music in the background don't pay attention to. But when we go to shows and we hear something just slightly different, we'll talk about it for the week. It's so exciting when bands do something different like that, because it shows, one, that the band cares about what they're doing. They're not just up there trying to get through the set. I mean, it's like they're playing with us. It's great. So I'm pretty sure that y'all feed off of the fans that are there
and each other
to the way y'all play.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Cool.
That's the most rewarding part. You can just show up and get your paycheck and play your standard set list or whatever, your 75 minutes or whatever. But some nights, I should say every night, as far as with Lynch Mob, most of the nights we're going up there to play for ourselves. We drove all this way, we came all this way, did all these shows, went through all the crap. We just want to let loose and do what we do. Guys riding bikes, the mountain bikers, they want to go for that ride and let off that steam or that adrenaline, same thing for musicians, and getting to do it together and seeing the look on the guy's face that you've seen from the audience so many times, like, oh, he's feeling it today. And, so you want to lean into that and make it more fun for him. And some nights that 75-minute set becomes an hour and a half. Sometimes it becomes 2 hours. And that's just strictly because we're having fun. And as a fan, I remember 2010 flying out to LA for the first time and seeing Lynch Mob for the very first time. They were doing some shows with Dokken and they were doing Mr. Scary, and song on the last beat went to end and they kind of just like went into this other thing and went on for another 5 minutes of just jamming on a thing that sounded kind of like the rest of the song, but they just made it up and added it. And I'll never forget that, and always thought that was the coolest thing. You
see, and that piece of music might have only been played that day, and that you were there to hear that piece of music for that moment.
Yeah.
That is just awesome. That's what's so great about live music.
Yeah, man.
It's always a surprise or a big event, so it's really cool. I hate when people just take it for granted, or some of them just drink too much. They don't pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's
more of a social gathering.
Yeah. Shows are just the greatest things to go to. Live music is the great thing that I like to do as well. So
that leads me
doing stuff like that. It's awesome.
And this leads me to my last question. I think you may have answered it already, Jaron, but was that the first time you ever saw George Lynch live, or that Lynch Mob show, or did you see him before that?
No, that was my first Lynch Mob, because like Oni had just kind of come back, Smoking Mirrors had come out. But I saw George in 2004 at Starland opening for Yngwie with his solo band.
I was at that show.
Yeah, so it was Kelly Keeling and Martin Anderson and I want to say Jeff Martin on drums, but I forget who the drummer was.
I don't remember either, but I was at that show, man.
Yeah, man, and I had known of George at that point. I just became a fan. I mean, I was diehard Yngwie fan at that point, so it's like, I knew it, but George came out and he came out with the Bones guitar, and I was like, this is like crazy. But that was like right the early stages of like really getting into him. And I mean, he just smoked that place out.
He smoked that night, man.
It just changed my life. And so that would have been my first.
Honestly, I think I enjoyed him more, and I love Yngwie too. I think I enjoyed him more than Yngwie that night.
Those were back in the days when when Yngwie had an actual band with a singer and a whole
Dude,
bit.
you're
And
right, I
so
remember.
I cherish those days very closely to my heart. Those are some great shows, and being a young guy, not getting to see the heyday of these guys and their main bands and their lineup.
Yeah.
I was hanging on to every thread that I could get back then, man.
I think he had Doogie White on vocals.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, I think
Sarzo?
Sarzo was on bass,
Yep.
right?
Yep, that was the Attack tour, yeah.
Yeah, that was great, man. I mean, seeing both of those are awesome. Andy, you seen Dokken, right? Or what was the first time you saw George?
I've seen Dokken, but it's been maybe late 90s.
Okay.
When I saw him. So it was a long time.
Did you see with George or no?
Yes.
Okay.
I did see with George. It might have been early 2000s. But
at that point, he wasn't in the band anymore. But I mean, it was by the 97 Shadow Life was the last album he had done with Dokken. So was it the late 90s? I guess maybe. I don't know if you saw him. Well, I mean, he sporadically came in and out of Dokken too.
Yeah.
I think they sporadically reunited once in a while. So, I mean, the first time I saw Dokken was the Monster Rock Tour in 1988 with Van Halen and Scorpions and Metallica. Admittedly, Metallica wiped the floor with everybody, man.
Of course they are.
I mean, and Justice for All wasn't even out yet, and they just came out all guns blazing, man. I mean, the energy they put out. It was at Giant Stadium, and I remember it was in July. It was fucking hot, man. People were passing out around me, and it was just nuts, man. But people were just going nuts to Metallica. I mean, rolls of toilet paper were getting thrown off the top balconies and shit. It was crazy, man.
Wish I could have saw it.
Yeah, but their music is so different than all the other bands that were playing. So, it was completely different. So, of course, it's going to sound different and kind of,
stand out
above everything else because, I mean, it sounded different when the others kind of were kind of the same genre, Scorpions and Van Halen and, all those were in the same circles. Then you throw in Metallica, that's like a whole different world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's really it. I mean, Andy, you want to take us to our top 10 Dokken songs? I don't know if Jaron has the top 10 there or not. You can just name songs that you love, or it's fine. Andy, take it away. Like, introduce this part.
Yeah. So what we're doing today with Jaron, we are going to be doing our top 10 Dokken songs. Now, I, for myself, only go up to back for the Attack. That's as far as I go. After that, I kind of changed directions in music. Green Day, Dookie, anybody? But there was a whole new sound coming in, so I kind of let go of Dokken. But I will say those first four by Dokken will always have a big place in my heart. I was just telling Al right before we started here because we're doing the top 10. These 4 albums had like 20 hit songs.
Yeah, that
were either video or their fans know by heart, or there were radio hits. So I was telling Al that Dokken was, even though they're so well loved still, but back then they were a little underrated.
Yeah,
they were kind of lost in the shuffle of Pretty Boy Rock or whatever it was. When Dokken had it all, the great lyrics, a great guitarist that kind of stepped out of the comfort zone, but still stayed within the song. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, of course.
So that's what made Dokken stand out from everybody else. So Dokken will always be my favorite of that, be one of my favorites of that era. So we're going to be doing our top 10, and of course my 10 are going to be consisting of these 4 albums. So Al, how were you going to do yours, man?
I just listen, man. I mean, it was hard to pick. Because I love Dokken. The same with you. Like, I mean, those 80s albums that's when I was immersed in them.
Yeah.
But they have come out with like some good stuff later on. Even post George, I think they put out some good material. I mean, Red Beach was in that band. John Norum. And the guy they have now is great.
John Levin, man.
John Levin. He's a great guitar. I saw Dokken at Starland before I moved down here. Don, his voice, it's not the way it used to be, but it was still enjoyable to go hear those songs. He's still out there slugging it out. But John Levin impressed me, man. Because I never really saw them with him. So, but I mean, the core of my top 10 basically is the 80s albums as well. There is one post 80s because there's an album that I really love too by them. So I don't know, Jaron, you want to go like I don't know if you picked the top 10, but you want to name like 3 songs. We usually go when we do top 10, we'll do 3. We'll go around, do 3 songs, and then we'll do another 3, and then we'll finally do another 3, and then do 1.
Sure.
So just name off 3 songs that you love by Dokken, you know.
I don't know that these are necessarily my top 3, but probably pretty close. Kiss of Death, for me, is like, George all day. That's an insane track. Back for the Attack was my first Dokken record. So my next favorite, believe it or not, is called Stop Fighting Love. Kind of a deep cut on there, but just the riffs and the solo just sounds so simple, but just so like, I can't even describe it, man. When I hear that track, it makes the hair stand up on my arms. And I would say those 2, and then probably Lightning Strikes Again would be my top 3 for now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great, man. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I wanted to say, you always heard, you always hear Later Day, Don Dokken. He doesn't sound the same. Well, he's been doing this for over 40 years, 50 years even, and live and real, not backing tracks.
And I gotta say, man, he was one of the top vocalists in the 80s in my
opinion. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, he was top tier, man.
Yeah, he was. And that's what made them so special. Him and George and Mick Brown and Pilzer. I mean, it was just, they were just the perfect band. That's back in the day when you would listen to a band and knew who everybody was in the band, and you followed everyone in that band. So special. But my 10-9-8, I'm gonna go with Tooth and Nail, the title track to Tooth and Nail. Very good album. Very rough album too. I love that a lot.
Very raw.
Number 9, we talked about the song earlier. It was mentioned, The Hunter, at number 9. It's got that really strong pop rock hook to it. That keeps you going in a song. And my number 8 is going to be Kiss of Death. We mentioned that's a great track. I remember the video and that being played on the radio everywhere. I was down in Corpus Christi at the time, and the rock station there was C101, and you can still get it online, which is pretty cool. But yeah, they would play that forever. So Kiss of Death is my number 8. All right, I'll go for it.
All right, my 10 is going to be the album. I love the Dysfunction album, actually, when it came out in 95. I remember buying that. I remember I used to belong to Columbia House and BMG. Remember those record clubs?
Oh, yeah.
So I saw the Dysfunction album and I'm like, wow, shit, man, Dokken's got an album out. It's, so I ordered it. It became like one of my favorites of that year, 95. I listened to that constantly in my car, CD player, man. And one of the songs on there is called Hole in My Head, which I believe is the 3rd track on there. And I mean, this album is like, vocal harmonies are off the chain. I could tell they were listening to King's X and the Beatles, man. I mean, it just seems like it, and when I heard Hole in My Head, man, I really thought it was a King's X song because it really was reminiscent of like, I mean, I'm a huge King's X fan too. And I was like, I welcome it, man. It sounded great. George's guitar playing was awesome on it. I love that whole album, but Hole in My Head, I'm going to pick as my number 10. Number 9, I'm going to go same as Andy, The Hunter. I thought that could have been a huge hit single for them.
Yep.
Honestly, I remember seeing the video on MTV all the time, but I always thought that song could have really crossed over to pop radio. And it didn't. Like, Dokken was one of those bands that was always kind of on that brink and just never really had that real big, huge pop kind of crossover hit, kind of like a Van Halen Jump or something like that. You know what I mean? So, but The Hunter seemed kind of would have been the closest one to that, in my opinion. Great, would have been a great radio track. And number 8, I'm going to go for the song Back for the Attack, which was a B-side to Dream Warriors. I always loved that song. It wasn't on Back for the Attack. It's on the remastered versions now, if you get a remastered version. But originally, it wasn't on the album. It was just a B-side to Dream Warriors. I remember getting the single to that and hearing Back for the Attack. I was like, shit, man, it's a great song. I don't know why it wasn't on the album. So that's my 10-9-8. Jaron, you want to name off 3 more?
Yeah, Tooth and Nail for sure. I mean, how can you miss with that? Unchained the Night. And though I don't really credit this as being a Dokken song, I'm gonna say it just because Don would probably argue that it is. But Paris is Burning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Off of the first time, Breaking the Chains.
Yeah, that ends it. In fact, I think it's on there live actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's live on that one. There's an original version of that album before that. It was a Don. It was on Career Records.
Yeah, I have it.
You have it? You have the original one?
I got the vinyl.
That's hard to get, man.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty hard to get. So it's got Don on the cover, right?
Red, right? It's blue.
Well, that one, but then there's also like the '79 record from Germany
where he's on
guys on it.
He's got different guys. Yeah. I don't even think George was even on that, right?
No,
nah. So, but yeah, that's a good one, man. It's a good one. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, number 7, 6, and 5. Number 7, Heaven Sent. Off of Back for the Attack. I was really into that album because, like I was telling Al, I was either 13 or 14 at the when it came out. And when you're at that age, you're like, "Yeah, this is my music. This was made just for me."
Yeah,
you know, I played that album constantly, and that was such a good song. Heaven Sent. Number 6, Unchained the Night. We've already mentioned that one. And number 5, another song that could have gone over to the pop radio, or at least be played more, and they even made a good video for it. Just Got Lucky. Yeah, you know, it was kind of a heavier Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, if you will. You know? So Just Got Lucky.
Yeah,
it's a great song. You know, the way that they did the backing vocals with the rest of the band, it was just so great. So that's my number 5. Would you stop it?
All right, man. My number 7, I'm going to the Breaking the Chains down, but I'm going with Knight Rider on that one, man. That's a cool track. Number 6 from Tooth and Nail, When Heaven Comes Down. I always love that song. That's pretty heavy, and I love the Beast for the East version. I just got this on Record Store Day, actually.
Oh yeah.
So and we all know the 70s was the era of live albums, but there were some damn great live albums that came out in the 80s, man. Oh, yeah. That's definitely my top 5.
That's one.
Top 5 live albums of the 80s. And now, Andy, we got to do a live. We got to do a show on 80s live albums. I don't know if we've ever done one or not.
No, we have not. But yes,
but that would be a cool show. So yeah, my number 6, When Heaven Comes Down. Number 5, I'm going to go Lightning Strikes Again from Under Lock and Key. Fucking great song, ripping George on there, man. So, go ahead, man. Another 3 if you got.
Yeah. So I'll probably go Heaven Sent. And then I've always loved it, but had a recent one for Don't Close Your Eyes. George wanted to start playing that towards the end of this tour, and that one really kind of like grew on me in a new way, and I love that track. I love the rhythm of it, and just the way the guys played on it's killer. And then these are in no particular order, but I'm going to go a non-George track, and I'm going to go Maddest Hatter from the Red Beach Erase the Slate record.
Whoa, that's a great album too, man.
Yeah, really, really good. And I think Erase the Slate, the title track, and Maddest Hatter are my 2 favorites on that. But Maddest Hatter, man, I mean, even when I see Don and John Levin now, I'm like, hey, you guys playing that? That's a killer track.
Yeah, that's a great album, man. I recently, it's funny, I was in a record store now, and Florida, man, they got quite a few record stores. Yeah. And I was in a record store and I was flipping through the CDs and I saw Erase the Slate in there signed by all the guys. It was autographed. And I was like, all right, I'll take that. $15.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. But it was cool. I was like, because I didn't have a physical copy of it. But I wanted to get it, man. And great CD, man. Because I never really kind of gave the latter Dokken too much of a listen, but yeah, that's a great one, man. And it normally gets name checked as a really great Dokken album. So,
oh wow,
yeah, Red Beach, man, great guitar player. And
it's a heavy one, man.
Yeah, Andy, you want to go now?
Yeah. We're at what?
4, 3, and 2.
4, 3, and 2. Number 4, It's Not Love That Left You Standing. Number 3, I've actually is on the Tooth and Nail album, but I've also got the 45 to it as well, which is Alone Again, which was a ballad that just kicks so much ass.
It does.
It's just beautifully written. Don sings it so passionate, and you just love it. I was like, 12 or 13 years old, just immersed in that song. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Number 2, Burning Like a Flame.
Yeah.
Good track.
I love that.
Off of Back for the Attack. Again, that video with the little cartoons flying around was all right.
Yeah, his guitar comes to life and stuff.
Yeah.
My number 4, I'm gonna go Kiss of Death. Love that song. I love the pretty seriously heavy lyrical content,
Oh yeah.
Nobody was singing about AIDS back then, man. Don was writing about it, so kind of cool, man. Number 3, Tooth and Nail, the title track. I mean, come on, man. George Lynch is just a goddamn beast on there. And number 2, I'm going to go Unchained the Night, opener on Under Lock and Key. So, and then we'll go. What do you think? I don't know if it's your favorite track, but you can name off like one that you really, really,
it's hard because I want to go When Heaven Comes Down or Into the Fire, Dream Warriors, whatever. But I'm gonna go Mr. Scary, honestly.
Oh yeah, dude,
great.
Because that was the first one that I ever heard of George. My 8th grade history teacher gave me that disc and was like, "Hey, when you put this in, start with this track, number 6 or whatever it was." And that was just like to hear a hair band, or what I thought was a hair band, play like that coming out of my thrash era of just metal and European shit. I was just like, that truly changed my life hearing that. And even getting to play it all the different shows over the years, I mean, that never got old for me. And I would say that's the be all end all George track there.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh yeah.
I love the version on the live album, man.
Yeah.
And he played it in Sarasota, and that was fucking unbelievable. I mean, to hear him play that all the time is just like, because like you were saying, he improvises, man. He doesn't play the same, 2 nights in a row, whatever. Sadly, I didn't get to catch a Lynch Mob show on your last tour, but I'm glad you came out and played with him at that Sarasota show. That was great, and it must have been a thrill for you to play. You do play a lot of the Dokken songs in the Lynch Mob set too, right? Probably not, but
there were a few on there that we purposely don't do because they're so Dokken-ish.
Yeah.
That, we steer clear of that. It's like Dream Warriors or In My Dreams.
Yeah.
And so to come full circle at the very end of kind of playing with George and to be able to play some of those favorites that I never got to play or always wish we had, that was almost like a personal gift in a way.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Andy, what's your number 1, bro?
My number 1 song by Dokken, it's going to be the song that started all for me. Watching MTV, and there was a show back then called Dial MTV, which you would write, people would call in, and it was most requests, and it was a top 10 show, and it would come on after school, and it was really cool because most of it was hard rock and heavy metal videos on there. That was the first time I heard Dokken, and I fell in love with the band, and it was In My Dreams. That video was in the top 10 for at least a year.
Great track.
So, I don't know how they play with their instruments in the rain, but yeah. It was video. But again, great lyrics, really pop rock sensibility, heavy pop rock sensibility. And that's what made it special, different from everyone else. It was hard rock, but it was also easily accessible at the same time.
Yeah,
it was easy to enjoy it.
A little bit of everything for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So, In My Dreams, my number 1 song by Dokken. And Jennifer Andrews says Alone Again is one of most beautiful rock ballads ever. You're right, Jennifer. You're right.
I agree with her too. Definitely.
Yeah, it really is.
My number 1 is going to be Into the Fire. That opening riff on there almost kind of reminded me of, very Van Halen-ish, but it's George, man. George was his own guy too, man. I mean, he's guitar hero in his own right, and one of my heroes, along with Eddie and Randy and those guys, man. They really kind of shaped my, wanting to play, and so I always love that opening riff, man. Just dun, I mean, it's just unbelievable, man. So I always make that's kind of my number 1, Doc. You can ask me next week, and Mr. Scary might be my number 1 or whatever. It always changes anyway, but this is just a fun little exercise. Jaron, I hope you had fun on the show, man. I really appreciate your extensive, coming out here doing extensive just kind of shoot the shit with us, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me. And I just now realized there's this like whole comment section on the side. So I got to say what's up to my buddy Dennis out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I always love getting to chat and shed some light on some things. And sometimes I'll go a while, without doing an interview, and I'll think to myself, like, there's so many things I would love to say that I'll never actually say unless somebody specifically asks. And they're probably for the better, but I'm always like, I wonder if my next interview is going to like make me say something that I probably shouldn't. But they've all been pretty smooth, and, getting to talk to Dokken or Lynch or anything, before or after me being in the band, it doesn't matter, man. It's always like, my favorite topic. And it's always cool to share the love of this kind of music with people who, know what they're talking about and are collectors or into it themselves. So I appreciate you guys for showing the support to a fellow fan and collector such as myself. And, I'm honored that people want to keep talking about this stuff and keeping it all alive.
Oh yeah, we talk about it every week.
It's every day for me, man, for sure.
This is a regular occurrence for us, man. But one day, man, we'd love to have you back on, bro.
Definitely.
And you have any live shows coming up that you're gonna be playing, or?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much of it I can talk about, but what I can talk about is I'm doing a little bit more with XYZ. I actually have a few Florida shows coming up in May, doing that. And it sounds like George and I are going to go out and do a little more. I can't really say until they give us the green light, but it won't be Lynch Mob. It'll be a different thing. Maybe some of the same guys, maybe some of the different guys. We haven't really gotten that far, but I know he wants to keep playing, and I know we have a lot of fun together. And so, I'm going to obviously keep that avenue open, but kind of like I said, when I got off tour, this is the first time in almost a decade where I don't know what I'm really going to do next. I've always had so many bands I've been working with at once that even when one faded, I had a full schedule with another. And this is the first time where I think
you actually got to sleep a little bit.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm still pretty tired. I've been home a little over a week now. Our tour ended almost a month ago, but I went straight into the studio with a couple other projects after the road, and I just finally got my sleep. And it's like, okay, I've watched all the movies on TV. Like, what's next? But
you're ready to get back to work, right?
Yeah.
The vacation's over.
I'm always working. The thing is, I'm a touring guy all day long. I can be in the studio, and I always am doing stuff as far as being creative. But I want to be out working, man. I want to be hands on. I want to be driving. I want to be doing deals and the whole, A through Z. And so for me, that's like the next big thing is figuring out my next move, physically, where am I going to tour? How am I going to tour? Am I going to play? Am I going to just tour manage? Am I going to do, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I know I'm a player, I'm a bass player. And I want to keep playing, and I'm hoping something great comes. And in the meantime, we got a few things here and there to sprinkle on the schedule, but I'm definitely looking for something. So if anybody's listening out there, talking about Schenker, Iommi, only the greats. But
I'm pretty sure good things will happen. Good things happen to good people. So you
got to work for it one way or another, and that's how I see it. And if it all ended today, I can honestly say I'm happy and I'm fulfilled, and I had an amazing career and run. And hopefully, it's not the end of it, but for now, period, I'm happy.
Oh, great.
Hey, all right. So when you come down to Florida, man, just hit me up. Let me know you're down here, brother.
Yeah, I'll shoot you a text when we get off this. I'll let you know where I know of already. But yeah, man, definitely keep you posted.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Andy, any last thoughts, brother?
No, it was a pleasure to meet you. This was a lot of fun. I got to learn about some bands that I never heard of. So
I got to check them out, man.
Yeah, man.
Bands that I can really dig my teeth into. So thank you so much for that. And if you ever come to the Houston area, it'd be great to see you live and sit down and chit chat and say hello to you in person. So that's great.
Yeah, man, we'll roll out the red carpet next time I'm down there, and I'll stay in touch. And I appreciate both of you guys for having me. And yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Oh, you got it, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate you guys.
Jaron, man, take care, brother.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Yeah, but I want to thank everybody that's been commenting. Jennifer, Metal Ben, Schuster, and also there was
Jimmy.
Yeah, and Jimmy James, and everybody out there for watching. Thank you so much, and support live music. support Jaron and all the different projects he's in. That's a true rock and roller, just playing and loving that out there on the road. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching.
Cheers, everybody. Take
All
care.
right. See ya.